Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast to Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, along with my co host, Ed Carbajal. And on a weekly basis, we plan to bring you the biggest news and interviews in the world of combat sports. Ed, how you doing, my man?
Fucking losing my patience over here.
You and your East Coast way of life, man.
Yeah,
We're a little more relaxed here on the West Coast.
yeah.
Anyways, this week we're joined by the co-founder and co-owner of the MMA Community.com forum. You can see him on the forum. He goes by the screen name Wild, and he's here joining us. My man, how you doing?
What's up, fellas?
What's going on, man?
Glad you could join us. Obviously, you guys have done a lot for me, and I've done my best to try to promote your guys' brand. You guys allowed me a forum to do some of my writing, and have given me the opportunity to be your guys' media representative. So again, I really appreciate what you've done for me personally, as well as your attempt to create a forum that is a friendly environment for MMA fans around the globe.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on the podcast. It's pretty neat to watch you evolve here a little bit. Attend the events. Now you got this podcast going on. It's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, just so you know, we have we always have the link to the forum too in every description on the YouTube channel. So, and we definitely know and appreciate all the attention you guys give us and support. So, thanks for me too.
Hey, man, no problem. I appreciate y'all plugging the forum. We got the U.S. covered here. Ed's on the East Coast. Matt's in Cali. I'm in Ohio Valley. You can tell by my accent.
So, anybody who's been around the forum or heard you on other podcasts knows basically, you started this coming out of the underground, and just saw the downfall of some of the attitudes and the ways that fans were, uh, I guess, expressing their enjoyment or non-enjoyment of the sports and fighter bashing and so on. So we're not going to go too deep into that because we've heard that before, and there's no reason to necessarily dwell too much on the past, and we're not here to badmouth any other forums. So we're
Yeah,
just going to jump.
we don't want Conor McGregor getting Conor McGregor nut hugger getting butt hurt on the forum either. Having to hear it again.
No, yeah, he oh, that guy. So what we're gonna do is we're basically just gonna, well, we got you on here. You're a good mind in the MMA world, so we just want to kind of go over what's been happening and look forward to the next week or two of action and kind of get your opinion on stuff. So with that said, you mentioned before we went live that you got to catch the main event between Thiago Santos and Eric Anders over the weekend. Quite a brawl for two guys who took that fight on week and 2 week notice.
Yeah, man, it would have been interesting to see how that thing played out if Anders would have had more than 6 days. I think he had 6 days notice, and 2 or 3 of them was traveling over there.
Yeah, that can't be easy. It's not, you go into a foreign country, foreign food. I'm not sure exactly where Anders is from, but anywhere in the United States, that's not an easy travel to get down to Sao Paulo. I think that's about 15 hours of travel. So yeah, he put up a good fight. Santos looked like he had a little bit of size on him. I know he's talking about staying in the 205-pound weight class, where Anders is more likely to drop back down to his original middleweight 185-pound. So I don't know. Interesting to see where the future goes. But for a last minute fight, and the card in general was pretty spectacular. So it was. Did you get a chance to catch that one, Ed? What was your opinion on that fight?
For UFC Sao Paulo, I saw the whole thing. I watched everything last week. I watched Bellator 205 and that. I actually I kind of was still gunning for Anders to win, but I mean, with the heat and everything, I don't know what the temperature was. I know they always talk about the heat. They didn't really mention it on the broadcast, but Anders, there was a few. He had his moments in that fight. So and then I read afterwards that Thiago Santos wants to stay at light heavyweight now. So outside of that, I don't think any other fights really. What's her name? The girl from Ultimate Fighter Brazil. What was her name? That fight really stood out to me. She got a submission win armbar.
Yeah, hold on. I'll tell you here in a second, guys. I got the results in front of me. Give me.
Yeah,
Was
she's
that
early in the card, on the Fight Pass prelims.
Myra Silva? Armbar over Jillian Robertson? Yeah, that was two Ultimate Fighters. So I didn't actually catch that. She won the Ultimate Fighter, or she was just a member of the Brazilian?
Oh no, she was Contender Series Brazil, not Ultimate Fighter. That's what it is. And she won her match. That's how she got there. And it was actually a really good. I mean, that was a really good fight. And the way she snuck in that submission was really good against somebody. I think Robertson was pretty well versed in submissions herself. So it was great. And she was really emotional for ring entrance to when she won. You could tell it meant a lot for her to fight there, with the UFC brand in her home country. So that was pretty cool. And then obviously the main event. And I know Cowboy Oliveira had a nice win. I'm trying to think. I saw the whole thing though. It's just there's a lot to take in. I was actually really into. I know. Wild didn't catch it, but the Bellator 205 card was really good too. The main event that I saw, the main portion anyway that I saw on Paramount. So
what was the main event of that card?
AJ McKee against John Macapa, however you say his last name.
McKee knocked him out, right?
Yeah.
It was a violent finish. Rafael Lovato had a big. It wasn't the most exciting fight, but he choked out John Salter in the third round.
Yeah. It looks like he was trying to do other things, like trying to round out his MMA game before he went to his bread and butter. You know what I mean? Like that's how I took it, as he was just trying to show people that he's more than just a jiu-jitsu guy now that he's in MMA. But I mean, if that's your base style, that's your base style.
Another big win on the opening of the main card is Patricky Pitbull knocked out Roger Huerta in a back and forth. The first round was spectacular. I mean, it was winging punches and back and forth, a ton of action. So I don't know.
I actually watched the replay of that one because I heard it was a firefight. That was a good fight.
What's your opinion on the status of that weight class? Obviously, Patricky's right there, and Primus has the belt, but in a lot of people's opinions, he's kind of holding Chandler's gold right now. So I think that's the fight we got to see. But I don't know how long Patricky sits and waits. I know him and Primus were going at it on social media a little bit, with a little bit of back and forth after Patricky called him out after the fight.
It'd be interesting, dude. I tell you, I doubted Primus, but man, he looks legit. I mean,
well, yeah, he is legit. I've seen him fight a lot. He fought out here a lot in Connecticut at Mohegan Sun on the undercards at Bellator stuff. So I've seen him fight a lot. He is legit. He's a strong guy.
He's big for that weight class.
Yeah. Dude. And the other thing is that that people keep on talking about that Bellator 180, but the technique he used was a legit technique to make it's the low calf shin kick. I mean, the idea is you want to break that outer bone on the outside leg. But I mean, the nerve damage that it does, that's why Chandler's foot fell asleep and he couldn't stand on it and it got all, wiggly or whatever. But like, that was a smart move by his part. It was a legit win. I mean, I know people were complaining about it. I mean, the way the commission handled it with pulling the chair away from Chandler and all that stuff was messed up in itself. But outside of that, the fight between them, that was a solid move. Primus is no Primus. I keep saying Primus because of the band, but yeah, he's no joke. He's a legit champion, I think. I hate that he got hurt and they couldn't run it back when they were supposed to.
I tell you, man, I mean, I think I would take him in the rematch, and I'd take him against Pitbull too, man. He's a big, strong dude for that weight class, and, he's skilled. And like you said, man, I mean, he's legit. I mean, I think that, Pitbull, seems to get emotional sometimes in fights a little bit and leaves himself open. And, man, you leave yourself open against that dude, he'll put some heat on you. So who would you all take if those two matched up?
I have a hard time going against Chandler. I'd probably take him over Patricky, but I have a hard time. Chandler has been a wrecking ball for quite a while now. Yeah. With his, I mean, you take Will Brooks out of Bellator's history, and Michael Chandler is we're talking about him as one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time. Somebody who hasn't fought in UFC and someone, you know how that goes as far as the argument from fans. But you take his 2 losses to Brooks away, and we're talking about somebody who's, has even lost to anybody else besides Will Brooks. I can't even. The Primus fight.
Yeah, outside of Eddie Alvarez and Will Brooks, I mean.
There you go. He split with Eddie Alvarez, but both of those were fight of the year. So
yeah.
Chandler is just an animal. So unless it's just Primus's time to kind of take the torch, it's hard for me to go against Chandler at this point. But I'd like to see Chandler and some of the 170 guys. A fight with like him and MVP would be fun. I know the tournaments, we're going to get into the tournament here shortly. So, a couple of the guys that could lose in the tournament potentially, and Chandler would kind of set up some super fights with, that Bellator could really thrive off of, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you think his, the length of some of those guys would pose problems for him though?
Oh, of course. None of those would be easy for him. But, a wrestler like him against somebody like MVP would sure be fun.
Yeah.
We're not going to see MVP wrestle against Daly. And, I think most people are probably picking MVP to win that fight. I think any fight with Daly is a toss up, in my opinion, just because of his punching power if he's not fighting a wrestler. But
what do you think happens if Eddie Alvarez returns to Bellator? I know they shut down the rumors of him signing with One. So, who else is on the table for him?
Oh, dude, they got to do him and Chandler.
Yeah.
They got to.
I think that's a must. You got to have that trilogy. A fight with Patricky would be fun. You could even a fight with Patricio Pitbull. If he wanted to come up to lightweight, he had talked about fighting Chandler. A fight with Alvarez is fun. Bellator's got plenty of guys. That would. Even fights with guys like Caveman Rickles and stuff like that. If you just want to give a fight where it's just going to be an all-out brawl, there's plenty of guys, plenty of opportunities for Eddie to put up some highlight reels again and make some money. I saw somebody mention today that I guess he's got like 4 kids or a handful of kids and stuff, and he's older in his career. If whoever's going to give him the money at this point is where he should go. I don't know if he's ever going to be able to contend again for the UFC belt. But, somebody with his career, record and where he's been, he doesn't have anything else to prove, in my opinion. I'd just go collect the money,
Dude, I'm looking at Chandler's record here. He lost back-to-back to Brooks back in 2004.
Yeah.
What the fuck happened to Will Brooks?
I don't know, man. I remember watching his first fight. It was in Vegas when he fought. It was that week of UFC 200, if I'm not mistaken.
He fought Ross Pearson on the Ultimate Fighter.
And it was like I remember finding it. I don't know if it was. People say there is such a thing as UFC like octagon jitters or whatever, but either way, I was just like that was the first thing I wondered about. And then now he's back in. Now he fights at PFL and he's winning, but it's like
Dude, he lost to Nick Lentz.
Yeah, but he's not fighting like the way he fought Michael Chandler. I don't know if the fights in Bellator took the best out of him, because they always say that fighters leave a part of themselves in fights like that, like the fight Rory McDonald and Robbie Lawler. That affected him for a while after that, and now he's renewed in Bellator. So I don't know what happened with Will Brooks, man. I still think he's a great fighter. He still fights really well. The fights that I've been following him at PFL, and
yeah, he just beat Firmino, man.
Yeah.
That's a quality win right there.
Yeah, so I don't think he's I don't think he's out of it yet, but he's definitely he definitely needs to get work on finishing more, especially in the PFL where it counts the most.
Let's see how old he's 31.
Yeah, so he's still got plenty of time. As far as his fights with Chandler goes, I always kind of just looked at it as he just had Chandler's number. He was kind of like the Dennis Hallman to Matt Hughes. Certain guys have guys' numbers. Their first fight was really close, if I recall. I believe Will Brooks kind of won a controversial decision.
Yeah, decision.
And then if I was at their second fight in San Diego, and it's hard to remember exactly, but I know I felt like Chandler was doing pretty well, and then he got hit hard in about maybe the third round or something, and they actually stopped the fight when he was on his feet, if I recall. It was
that was a crazy knockout. I remember I said that. I was living with my ex at the time, and I said to her, I was like, "Yo, he's knocked out standing up." Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, but Yeah. Other than Awad and Bellator, who was his first defeat. Brooks just was ran roughshod in there, and when he left there, he being one of the top free agents, people were talking about him, getting an immediate title shot.
Yeah.
And then he went to UFC, and it just didn't work out. So
Hey,
obviously,
while we're speculating, I don't mean to cut you off, but while we're speculating, because I know Wild doesn't have a lot of time, I have to get his opinion because I was looking for opinions today earlier when I was on Twitter. What do you think is going to happen for UFC 230? Me and Matt have been talking about it for weeks, and in all honesty, that's what I meant when I said I'm losing my patience. Like, it's for me, it's right around the corner, and us East Coast folk, we don't like to not know things. So,
well, what did Dana say would not be the main event? Because whatever that is, that's the fucking main event. So what did he say? Did he say that they were not going to do Jones and Gustafson?
Yeah, he did say that.
Okay,
he said no Jones. I pointed it out on Twitter, and it didn't get a lot of eyeballs, but the tickets, I get, I'm able to get my tickets ordered ahead of time. Maybe call it one of the perks from going to 48 live events. But through that, I was able to get the ticket prices at the end of last week. The top ticket price is $625. Actually, I think you noticed that, Wild, on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, although not cheap, to throw it out there, Jones versus Cormier here in Anaheim, I think the top ticket was $1,200.
Mm.
That puts into perspective the likelihood, in my opinion, of a Jones fight. Maybe Jones DC, or I'm sorry, I don't think Jones DC. I think that's off the table with those ticket prices, because you'd be able to get a lot more for that.
Yeah.
Let me look at this fight card real quick.
The card's loaded. It just needs one more fight. It doesn't even necessarily need a main event. It just needs another fight. If it was Gustafson versus anybody, if it was Jones versus anybody, you could make Poirier Diaz the main event and add another fight. And
so what's a $625 fight for you? Would like Cejudo Johnson too, or although I don't think that can happen because isn't somebody injured?
I personally wouldn't pay $625 for any fight, but but with that said, that $625 is more of a standard card. I mean, that could be Poirier Diaz, that could be a TJ fight. It could be Cejudo. I saw a list today that said basically all the champions are out of the question.
Okay, so you got Jacare, David Branch, Diaz, Poirier, Derek Brunson, Adesanya.
Do you think they're going to pull GSP versus somebody out of their ass? I feel like that's the other option.
I don't think at those prices. And then and then you got Rockhold Weidman too.
Yeah.
So you have four great fights right there. That's your four main card fights. You just need one more. And honestly, you could do Poirier Diaz main event if you had Gustafson on the card in a competitive fight, or if you had Jones on the, that's your five. That's pretty solid 5 fights.
Woodley's hurt, right?
Yeah.
Woodley's out. Namajunas is out till next year. Cejudo and TJ are the only champions not scheduled, but there has been a lot more talk about them fighting towards the end of the year or early next year.
Yeah, I think they'd want to promote that more.
I would have thought. I don't know why they were so. I don't understand what the hesitation to do TJ versus Marlon Moraes is.
Well, I mentioned it to you. Oh yeah, that'd be good too.
Moraes is a New Yorker, right? He's in your.
He's from around. He was actually at the grappling event I was at that Saturday. That Simon was competing, and he walked in as I was walking out. I was so pissed off because I've talked to him before. I mean, the interview's on our YouTube channel, and he's always eager to get himself out there. So. But yeah, him fighting around here is always a big deal for anybody in this region.
Shit, that's only 6 weeks away.
Yeah, there's not a lot of time. It's not a lot of time for someone to cut weight that if they are not aware of what's going on. TJ versus Cejudo doesn't really happen, in my opinion. I don't think TJ's getting down to 125 if they're going to do it at that weight class. You got guys like Jones. Do you do Jones versus you throw Jones on there against a kind of a middle of the road heavyweight as kind of a primer for a Cormier or a Lesnar at heavyweight?
Dude, I'm telling you, I don't give a fuck what Dana says. I'm telling you, Jones in New York. This is an MSG, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Jones in New York against Gustafson. Gustafson's talking shit to him on social media.
I hope that happens.
You don't think they'll do that, Matt?
I just don't. The ticket prices seem odd to me. It seems low. To put in perspective, to go to the McGregor fight, and I know it was a McGregor fight, but McGregor Alvarez, just to get in the door was $550. The last year to get in the door to the GSP when those went on sale, GSP Bisbing, to get in the door was about $275. This one to get in the door is $130.
Well, Lesnar can't fight, right?
Not till
Lesnar can't.
January.
Yep, Lesnar can't fight. It could be Jones, and it could be Jones versus Gustafson, but I feel like UFC is leaving a lot of money at the door if that's the case.
Unless they're going to do
fights, could they do?
I don't know. I mean, they got Ngannou and Blades already booked for Beijing.
The fight that you could do. I don't know what's Stipe up to. Could you do Jones Stipe? Could you do Jones Cain Velasquez? I was
going to say, what's Cain up to?
I mean, he's probably in a hospital bed.
Yeah, but somebody did put up an image of that Cain Velasquez versus John Jones. I mean, that would be so shockingly out of left field that people would want to see it.
Does Nick Diaz come back? Is there? I know they're talking about Robbie Lawler fighting Wonder Boy, but what if they offer him Nick Diaz in a rematch? Do they do Nick Diaz Lawler too? I mean, there's a bunch of odd possibilities, but I just don't see it. I don't see a championship unless it's an interim, and I don't even care about that. I'd rather see
how long can they wait to announce a main event? I mean, I know you mentioned that the only time they did it before was like UFC 36 or something like that, but obviously it's a different time now. I mean, like, how are you gonna sell tickets to the Garden without saying the main event? Like, how late will they wait? You know what I mean? Like, when are they going to announce it? They can't announce it at 229. Isn't that way too late?
Well, they do this all the time, but they usually do it in like London. When I said UFC 36, that was about the last time I remembered personally buying it. There's been very few times I think I've bought an event where I didn't know the main event. Maybe a fight night here and there, maybe an Ultimate Fighter finale or something. But for a big, I would never in my imagination would I have thought that MSG wouldn't have a main event, 45 days out or 40 days out, whatever the heck we are right now. It's so wild to me, and knowing that there's such a little, there's not a whole lot on the table. It's, as Wild said, it's basically got to be John Jones, if they're going to have one. The thing they do to trick the London crowd is or the European crowd is they sell the event.
What if they pull GSP out of the air versus Ben Askren? Do you think that'll happen? I know I'm just playing devil's advocate, but
oh shit. Hey,
I know.
Ben Askren made some subliminal message on Twitter the other day. I want to check this out. Did y'all see it?
Yeah, he said time to put up or shut up.
Yeah.
I saw that, and that kind of got me going. Again, the ticket prices, I just would be shocked if, maybe GSP and Askren, because Askren doesn't have the name value, and maybe the UFC just kind of bites the bullet to sell it out. Because I don't know if they sell out the card without a big main event, honestly. I know it's Madison Square Garden. I know it's, but I don't know. Do you put it all on the shoulder of Diaz? I've said it before, but if Diaz pops for weed a week out from the event, or, I guess he can, I don't know what the rules are anymore, and I'm not even going to try to guess anymore. But
I think you can use up to like 24 hours before the fight.
Okay, there you go. But I don't know. If I'm the UFC, I'm awfully nervous about putting it all on the shoulders of Nick Diaz or Nate Diaz to carry my event in Madison Square Garden. This has become their tentpole event for the year. This is their new, their last two shows here have been basically the biggest shows in the last, 5-6 years. I don't know, but you asked when they got to go on sale. I'm surprised it hasn't been announced tonight. They go on ticket sale tomorrow for the Fight Club.
Yeah.
Newsletters Thursday, and then public is Friday. At the very latest, to me, it has to be Thursday night, Friday morning before it goes on sale to the public, because that's where they would take the big hit. They're going to get their Fight Club. They're going to get their, the hardcore fans that have the Fight Club and use the newsletter and stuff. They're going to buy their tickets, but you've got to get that extra 10,000 tickets sold to the public that most of them are going to require a main event to be sold. especially to sell the $600 seats. The
Yeah.
$130 tickets are going to sell out in 10 minutes. The cheap seats are going to sell out quick because that gets people in the door. But
So check this out. Just because we're talking about it, I'm looking at my feed. An hour ago, Dustin Poirier just tweeted, "I hear the UFC is searching for a main event when they have one already. It's me versus Nate for a 165-pound title. A main event for the people. Stop searching. We got this. Let's go."
I don't think maybe Wild, you can chime in on this. I've had a lot of family members and friends ask me about this. As far as I know, I don't think the UFC can just make a weight class. They can have a catch weight, but I was under the impression that the commission would have to meet. It would have to go through the boards or however they do it, and there would have to be a vote to create a new weight class just like they couldn't create a weight class for Iakenta. They could have given him the belt against Khabib, but they couldn't say, hey, all of a sudden we're fighting for the 70 or 158-pound championship or whatever the heck Iakenta weighed in 156 and a half. I don't think you can just create weight class. I don't know if you have any opinion or any knowledge on that, but as far as I know, you can't.
What'd they do when they created the weight class for Ronda?
Well, the 135-pound women's weight class already existed because they brought it in from Strikeforce. It was something that was already done. There might be a 165-pound weight class in some amateur leagues and maybe some European leagues, but or I guess you could say we're using like Ryzen weight classes, and you might be able to find something to fall in there. But yeah, no, I mean the UFC can bring it in, but I always thought the commission had to sanction a fight at a certain weight class, and that has to kind of exist for it to be considered a world championship bout.
Okay, so when they acquired Strikeforce, they brought the 135 over, the women's 135 over.
Yeah, well, like their first event with Ronda was in California, and Strikeforce had already had events here, and California already recognized the 135-pound women's weight class.
Okay.
Like I don't think there's a 105-pound weight class. So if like the UFC brought in the Keebler Elves to decide to fight for the for the 105-pound class, I don't think they could just. I don't think in like California you could just do it, and I might be totally wrong on that, but I as far as I know, you can't just. I would think it would have to go through some kind of process with the commission to create the weight class, and just I would think that the commissions would want some extra money somehow before they start sanctioning another championship weight class division. Basically,
I think they would also want more time to announce it to the public and get fighters aligned and with who's going to be fighting in that weight class, like a Kevin Lee, for example, and then promote it. With only like 6 weeks left here, I don't know. It seems it seems like I don't think they would want to do that.
You throw Kevin Lee out there. Now there's another name we haven't really discussed. With the fight card you have right now, could you throw like Askren versus Kevin Lee on that fight card?
I feel like that's not big enough. Like casuals don't.
No, not for a main event, but just to add it to the 5 fight cards, promote the card, and like then make Diaz Poirier your 5-round, violent championship main event. Basically.
Yeah. What about Tony Ferguson?
He's on 231 or 232.
He fights Pettis in 2 weeks.
Or 229 rather.
Yeah, so I don't know. But I would guess somebody's going to have to announce something. This is, it just never fails. You got guys failing drug tests, and everybody goes after Pride, and now we're in a situation where there's no main event a month out, and that was kind of one of the things everybody used to bash Pride about, was that they didn't announce their main events in time. So it's just kind of funny how,
I'm going with Jones just because Dana said it's not happening.
If I was betting Monday, I would say Jones versus somebody. I was just surprised by the ticket price, but maybe they thought that they couldn't oversell it in case Jones isn't able to pull it off. I don't know, but again, putting Jones and Diaz on the top of that card scares the hell out of me. Flying across country to go to the event.
Yeah,
But with that said, obviously the MMA Community.com is kind of big on Bellator MMA, and ever since the forum was created, we've always there's been a good relationship between Bellator and them. We get Cutman Matt, we had Jimmy Smith, that would come onto the forum and help answer questions and be really fan friendly. They've got one of their biggest events of all time coming up this Saturday night on DAZN, DAZN app, which I'm not. It's a great streaming service, but I'm not sure how it's going to work for the fans. But getting into that card, I know one person, Wild, you've been kind of big up on since you started was Aaron Pico. He steps up against Leandro Higo, a former title contender. What's your opinion on that guy?
I think he's a future champ, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't think he's going to be denied. I mean, the kid is just sick. And, I mean, yeah, he lost his first fight out, his debut in Bellator and all that. But since then, he's looked like a wrecking machine. And this fight here, I don't know. If I had to predict, I would probably go with Pico by decision in this one. If he wins this fight right here, man, I mean, this is a tough matchup for him.
Yeah.
This veteran, this fought a lot of quality guys, but I like Aaron by decision here.
Yeah, I'm picking him to win too. I honestly do think he can pull off a finish just because he's been so impressive since he stepped away. He stepped out of his comfort zone. Well, we just didn't know about his boxing background. We keep thinking wrestling is his background, and everybody expected it, which is why he got that. When he went for a takedown, and he got choked in New York. But ever since then, it's like he's like letting people know, I'm more than just a wrestler. I also have this boxing experience, and let me show you these hands. And he's been dropping people left and right. So I feel like he's actually got probably insane power for his size. I wouldn't be surprised if he can pull off a finish.
Yeah, the speed that he's shown with his punches and power is something that I haven't seen many times. I've been lucky to be able to sit ringside for his whole career up to this point. I won't be able to make it to this fight this Saturday, but the minute other than his first fight, which was obviously quick and didn't go his way, his other three finishes have just been spectacular. He almost reminds me of a Vitor Belfort with his hand speed, and he's got the power. And I don't know, like you said though, it's a big step up for him. As much as I root for the guy and I'd like to see him get a finish in this fight, I think a decision might actually be the best thing for him if he can go through and battle it out for 15 minutes and see where he's at after that. We talk about putting him into a title fight with somebody like, who would he fight? A Pitbull? A fight with Patricio Pitbull is no easy task, and especially over 4 or 5 rounds. So I think some time in the cage might do him well. But
even if he wins this fight, I think he needs a couple more before he steps up for a title shot. I mean, how old is Aaron? What, 20, 23 or something like that?
Yeah, I think he's 21.
21.
Yeah.
It's something ridiculous.
He's still really young, especially in terms of cage experience.
Yeah, and for the sport overall, I mean, he's got
22.
Yeah. So he's got a long time to even, and that's the thing. Not to pull the phrase, but we haven't even seen his full form yet. You know what I mean? Like, he's still developing as a fighter.
Yeah, I mean, he's got this step up is huge for him. I mean, he's going from fighting some journeymen to a guy who's a legit contender in his weight class. So I don't know, but I mean, the guy's just spectacular. So I really look forward to that. After that fight on the main card, then we get into the welterweight tournament, which is obviously stacked from start to finish. We talked a little bit about it with MVP and Daly. Obviously, it's got Rory McDonald, John Fitch, Ed Ruth, and Gracie. But then the opening bout is Douglas Lima and Andrei Korshkov. In my opinion, probably the best first round. I mean, I think it's pretty easy to point that out as the most accomplished first round fight. I guess you got Rory and Fitch career wise, but these guys are both in their prime right now, and I look forward to another slugfest. It's hard for me to go against Korshkov right now. I think that guy might be the future of that weight class, and as much as I'm a fan of Douglas Lima, I think Korshkov might take this fight.
I like Korshkov. I've always liked him. it's hard for me to pick against him, just because I know he's got insane. He's another one that's got a few body shot KOs to his record. And he's also what's his name, Shlemenko's protege, so that's where his striking power comes from. But he's not too bad as far as avoiding being submitted either. He showed that when he fought Benson Henderson. So I like Koreshkov in that. And again, about the first fights for this tournament, Neiman Gracie and Ed Ruth is actually one of the ones I'm most interested in seeing, just because you got a really high level athlete and wrestler in Ruth versus Neiman Gracie, who's undefeated and just re-signed with Bellator, and this is the first thing they put him in was this tournament. So that for me, I mean, I like that fight as a hardcore fight fan. That's one of my favorite fights in the opening round.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards Lima in this one. I tell you why. I think you remember his last fight against McDonald, right? So he laid in Roy's guard for the last 4 minutes of that fight, and after that, I think if he could have got that fight stood up and he lands a couple more leg kicks on Rory, that fight's over. And I think that really pissed him off and disappointed him that when he rewatched that fight, just based on what I saw some comments on social media, that he didn't work harder to get that fight stood back up and put the finish on. And, hopefully he's really been training and is ready to go in this one. And I think he will be. So I'll lean towards Lima in this one. This is probably my favorite fight on the card. I mean, I know everybody's looking at Mousasi and McDonald, the main event, but this is probably my favorite fight on the card.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there. I mean, it's a great fight. Like I said, as far as the tournament goes, this. If I was guessing the finals, I'd almost have these guys in the final. I would have a hard time not taking Lima in a rematch with Rory, because of a lot of what you said. Really close fight, and a little bit more activity and a little bit, maybe a little bit smarter game plan, and I think he wins that fight. And like I said, I think Koreshkov is the future of the division. I think the guy's just an animal who's learned from his losses and has seemed to come back better, from whether it was Ben Askren or the first time he lost to Lima. That brings us to the co-main event, which is a battle of kind of the Legends League in Bellator, and it's Quentin Jackson and Vanderlei Silva, two guys who really carried me as a fan of the sport for well over a decade. Vanderlei going back to the 90s and Rampage to the early 2000s. I know this is kind of a pick'em fight for most people. I personally would like to see Vanderlei win the fight, just because I know it's going to be spectacular if he does. You have any thoughts on that one?
Matt, we get into this shit all the time with some of the guys on the forum, right? About, them making, jokes about Bellator, being the retirement league, and, anybody that can't compete in the UFC anymore goes over there. And, guys like Chuck shouldn't be fighting Tito, and Juan shouldn't be fighting Rampage. I'm excited for the fight, man. I'm like this. Look, if these guys still want to compete, as long as you're not putting them up against, young, hungry lions, I mean, let them fight. It's what they want to do. I mean, what are they going to do if they're not doing this? Coach for a bit, coach for a while, maybe start a gym. This is these guys' passion. And, if they want to fight, man, as long as you're matching them up with guys that are, in the same age range, I'm all for it, man. I mean, if predicting the fight, I think, I guess I question how much Rampage's heart is in it. I wonder if the dude even trains anymore. I mean, last time I saw him, he looked like he weighed 280 pounds. So I wonder how much his heart is in it. I picked Juan by knockout.
I mean, I mean, let's go ahead, Matt. I mean,
no, I'm kind of going that same way. I don't, unless Rampage has really been, gearing up for this fight because it's such a grudge match and somebody that he just doesn't like. and he decided to. But as Wild said, I kind of the same thing. I mean, I was at the Sonnen fight, and it was pretty pathetic performance. And I just don't see it. I think if Vanderlei comes in and as long as he fights a little bit smart, I know that's never been his forte so much. He's always been kind of straightforward, but I think if he picks his shots, uses a few leg kicks here and there, I think he can frustrate Quinton and then maybe knock him out with a flurry at some point. So I don't know. I wish it was Pride rules. I'll tell you that. Pride rules would make that fight a lot more interesting. But
Hey, they should have brought that to Risen.
yeah, no, it would have been a great place for it. But I think this is the kind of matchup, as Wild said, that they should be doing. I mean, we're kind of seeing it with Fedor now. Fedor fought Frank Mir. Now he's fighting Chael Sonnen. I mean, those are the nobody's under the belief right now that Fedor versus Sonnen is a top 5 heavyweight fight, but it's going to be the fight that a lot of people are going to be talking about. I mean, it would be the fight everybody was talking about if McGregor and Khabib wasn't taking place the weekend before. So, it's I like what they're doing, especially when they stack a card like this and you have 4 or 5 just really solid fights, and then you throw one of those legends fights in there. I think Juan deserves to be able to fight. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was banned for life from the UFC for not even taking a drug test. He didn't fail one. He didn't take it. But you've got guys like John Jones, who has multiple fails and is able to come back constantly. And we had a guy like Vanderlei, who toward the end of his career was basically told you can never fight again for refusing a test. Now, I think we all kind of know where that test probably would have led, but with that said, quite a difference in the punishments that are levied out depending on who you are and how much money you can make for the UFC when it comes to USADA.
Are you picking Rampage in this fight, Ed?
You know what? I
put it out there, brother.
I think I honestly I don't think Rampage is as out of it as you guys. So I think I'm leaning towards Rampage. Only because, granted, he's not the Rampage we saw, but when you look at the people he's lost to, like been finished by, I should say. It's because the losing decision, that's the opinion of some judges or whatever. But he's been submitted by John Jones. He's lost to some like really notable fighters. So I actually, if you look at Rampage's career. Granted, it's coming to a close. This is why I mentioned bringing it up. If you look at it when he first fought in King of the Cage, when he wore a wrestling singlet against Marvin Eastman and the back tore and his butt cheeks were hanging out, to how he evolved and became a legit, well-rounded fighter, I feel like that experience is not going to leave the man. His weight issue, is I think it's a thyroid thing. I don't think it's him being too lazy or anything like that. But
I think it's an Xbox problem.
I do know he's like a big gamer. You're not wrong. I know he's a big gamer, and I know he's got like a Twitch channel and all that stuff. Yeah. So, but I actually bought that Bluetooth Xbox for the Xbox 360. He did a commercial for the headset. I bought it because he did the commercial for it, and it worked really well. I don't know where it is now, but it worked really well. But yeah, no, and this is me being like Matt, the way Matt is about Fedor. I just because he's one of these icons of the Pride era to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for me to not pick him. You know what I mean? Even though Wanderlei is the same thing, but I like the rivalry between he and Wanderlei, and I always kind of wanted him to win when they fought there. So when he got the revenge when they fought in the UFC, it was obviously a big deal. I don't see why they're doing another one, but again, like you said, it's why not? Why wouldn't we watch it? If both men want to do it, why not?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm leaning towards Rampage.
No, Rampage, like you said, is a legend. I was actually at that Eastman fight, which is crazy because I was at the Eastman fight and I was at his last fight against Chael. So it's crazy to think how long and how many wars the guy's been in, and his blood and guts that he's left in the cage for the entertainment. Both these guys,
and he still hits really hard.
Yeah, in his prime, he was an animal.
Yeah,
just an absolute animal.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the newer fans, I mean, see him from the last, 4 or 5 years and forget that, his battles, they weren't even
It's
really
like they
battles.
forget that he was a champ. They forget that he held the title in the UFC. You know.
Yeah, I mean, he knocked out Liddell when Liddell was the man, and he destroyed him in Pride prior to that, and I mean, he's got, he's just a legend. Both these guys are legends of the sports, and like you said, it's just great to see him be able to fight. And like I always say with these older guys, it's put on a show, and hopefully nobody's maimed and is able to just still have a thought process and be able to walk after these fights. But
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you're mentioning that because they just interviewed coincidentally, and I'm not trying to segue into Karate Combat on Thursday or anything, but Boss Rutan was on the MMA Hour doing an interview for Karate Combat, and he commented on his own retirement, saying, a lot of guys when they retire, it's usually when they take a few losses and they're old. So he said he was glad that he was able to retire on some wins, even when he tried to come back in 2006. And you really don't want to see that for anybody, but more common than not, that's usually the case, that they're racking up losses, and it just seems like it's they go out on their shield, so to speak.
yeah, it would have been interesting to watch Boss Rutan fight Chemo that weekend. He was supposed to fight Chemo and then ended up having to fight Warpath
Yeah.
Fariel. So, but he ended up winning, and retiring. So that we want to get to the main event here with obviously the super fight between 185-pound middleweight champion Gegard Musashi and the 175-pound welterweight champion Rory McDonald. As far as Bellator goes, when you're talking cross divisions, or possibly just in general, this is about as good as it gets. This might be the two best pound for pound fighters in Bellator squaring off. I've stated it. I'm going to go with Musashi just because I think he's too big, too strong, and maybe a lot less mileage. He's got a lot more fights, or at least I think he's at 51, 52 fights, something like that. But the wars that Roy's been in, I think those are going to start showing themselves a little bit more as he winds down his doesn't wind down his run, but as he goes through his run here in Bellator and then on into the welterweight tournament.
Think about this, guys. This may be the best welterweight and the best middleweight on the planet going at it right here.
Yeah.
Arguably.
I agree. I mean, we got Rory dismantled Woodley when they fought. Now, obviously, Wonder Boy beat Rory pretty bad when they fought. So there can be arguments back and forth. But if you're talking champ versus champion, and just looking back at the history, I mean, he destroyed. It was a decision, but he totally outclassed Woodley and Musashi. Take away a little luck if he gets the decision against Machida and doesn't have that. He avenged the loss to Uriah Hall, but you take away that kind of fluke loss, and I mean, you're talking about a guy who's on a win streak right now that. I think he had one more loss. Maybe I'm forgetting somewhere in there, but I mean,
he lost to Jacare.
There you go. In a fight, and then he beat Jacare earlier in his career in Dream, in the 85 tournament they had. But yeah, I mean, you really, I mean, you talk about you'd pay a lot of money to go watch Whitaker and Musashi, and you'd pay a lot of money to watch Woodley and Rory rematch. So. I don't know. I think it's a great fight. I think it's a great main event. I think it's, I wish it wasn't on the DAZN app. I think that's a mistake for Bellator personally. But
yeah, I wish they had done like a simultaneous stream, but then it would. I mean, obviously they're trying to get people to sign up for this thing, so I feel like I might sign up because you get a 30-day free trial before they start charging you. I feel like I'll sign up on Friday. So I can watch this and whatever else is between now and my 30 days, and then by then I'll keep it. However, I mean, we talked about this on previous episodes. It's starting to get expensive to be a fight fan.
Yeah, what is it? What is the zone? 15 a month?
10.
It's 9. I signed up for it on Saturday to watch the Anthony Joshua heavyweight world championship boxing match.
What's the stream quality, Matt?
It was flawless, high definition, flawless stream. I can't really say anything bad about it. It had the Bellator 205 card on it. It's going to show all the Bellator events. So I'm not sure what you have right now for a satellite or a cable or a streaming service. I know right now I pay an extra $5 a month for a mini package to get Paramount. So I'm looking into it right now. So if DAZN gets all the Bellator events, I can drop that $5 and kind of kick it towards this and stuff like that. But
if I sign up for DAZN, I'm just dropping cable, period, and being in one of these cord cutters.
Yeah, man, I did it about 6 months ago. I mean, from October to April, I'll use a live streaming service like a PlayStation View or YouTube Red, something like that. Typically, I do PlayStation View. It's the package I get, I think, is $45 a month. And then we have Netflix. A friend of ours has Hulu, and we swap passwords. Don't tell them that. And then everything else, we are just free apps, that we're able to get, like Terrarium TV, or although that's gone now, One Box HD, things like that. So with internet, the live streaming television and Netflix, we're at about $100 a month, and I don't have to deal with the cable companies. Call them every year and try to negotiate and threaten to leave and all that horse shit. And then for 6 months out of the year, from May, June, July, August, and September, I cut PlayStation View back, and my total bill is only about $60 a month. So I'm really liking it. I'll probably sign up for DAZN and check it out, and and maybe keep it if the quality's as good as Matt's saying it is.
Yeah, because I mean they have the boxing Super Series, Matchroom Boxing, Bellator. They just added Combate Americas, so it's looking like and I'm sure they're gonna add more stuff. So
yeah, it was. I couldn't complain about the stream. It was great stream, and
you use Fight TV, right? Also, right, Matt?
No, I have.
I have, because I used to be an affiliate for them.
Fight TV. Oh yeah. The Fight TV app.
Yeah, I mean that stream is typically flawless.
Yeah.
I think that the DAZN one was actually better.
Wow,
I think there was a little more color to it. It just seemed like a little bit, but maybe that's because I was watching a boxing match in London where there's a lot of blue and a lot of like they do real well with their lighting and stuff like that for a big production that historically in European boxing it's always kind of it's kind of like watching a KSW event or something.
Yeah, fight was a little grainy to me. I always found, because like I watched the Karate Combat events there, and then when they switched to Fight Pass, I watched the last one, the Greece one, on Fight Pass, and it looked better on Fight Pass. And then it actually looks better on their own website, by the way. If you guys watch Karate Combat, if you go to karate.com, all the fights are there. They have the cool HUD. It's like watching a video game that you can interact with. Check it out if you haven't.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the streaming services go, and I don't mean to plug anybody, but I have I switched to Sling TV. I got rid of Direct TV and I have the Sling, and I wasn't sure initially how I was going to take it, but if for a sports fan, now I don't have kids and stuff who I have to necessarily cater to, but for a sports fan, I get access for the Access TV fights. I get Paramount. I get Fox Sports 1 and 2. I get
Fox Sports 2.
I get NBC Sports Network. I basically get every fight that's a TV broadcast. Plus, I get Red Zone for the NFL. I know, Wild, that's something you'd be interested in. I get Goal Line. I get SEC Network. I get Pac-10-12 Network. I get ACC Network. I get all the
ESPN News, and
I get ESPN 1, 2, and News.
Okay.
I get ESPN 3. It has the stream that directly to their stream for like Glory events. I pay $60 a month, and that includes a 50-hour DVR. So it might be something you might want to look into. Some of the local channels, I don't get CBS because of where I'm at. They don't carry CBS, so that hurts for NFL. But if you get the Red Zone and you kind of know how to work around that, you can get CBS. I know you can add CBS stream for like $5 a month as a standalone. But right now I pay $60 for that for all that. I just signed up for the Zone. I have Fight Pass. So I'm for about $90 to $100, I pretty much have every streaming service that a fight fan would ever want, plus football and baseball and most of your and I don't know if you're a basketball fan so much, but the Sling also offers the NBA package. So
Yeah,
it might
man.
be something.
Go ahead, man. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it might be something to look into. I don't want to advertise them too much, but I've been pretty impressed with their service since I've gotten it.
Yeah, I actually just downloaded a couple of APKs that allow me to watch any NCAA football game, any NFL football game. It's basically like having the NFL network, and if there were an NCAA football network, I would have it. I'll have to send you those links and have you guys check it out, man. They're really cool APKs. They're just, it takes 5 minutes. You download it. You got an app on your Roku, your Fire Stick, or whatever you got, and you're rocking and rolling. You can watch any game you want. But with the zone, I'll probably Bellator's been so good to us, man. We've gotten to know some of the PR guys over there, and Jimmy Smith's a fan of ours, Cutman Matt, and I'll probably sign up just to support him and see how it goes.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, I mean, it has everything's on demand. So I don't know. I was impressed with it with the boxing, and I went on and watched a couple other videos. I caught myself watching some cricket. I never knew what the hell cricket was, but all of a sudden I'm watching cricket because it's on DAZN and there's people dancing around in the crowd, and it's just a wild scene. But
were you high as shit?
No, not anymore.
Were you in Brooklyn?
No, I'm not.
Greenpoint.
I'm not your neighbor, Ed. That we've heard so much about. But we kind of strayed away. So who do you got in that main event? Getting back to Bellator 206.
I'm like you, Matt. I'm leaning towards Mousasi, man. I think that those wars catch up to Rory here, and the size advantage that Mousasi has, but also the experience, man. I was just looking at his resume. Good God,
yeah.
So I'm leaning towards him. Probably, I don't know, unanimous decision, maybe.
Yeah, I think I'm with Mousasi as well. I feel like he just dishes out more damage, and Rory doesn't seem to wear damage well.
Yeah,
you think he finishes him, Ed?
You know what? Because Rory's nose is broken twice, so I feel like at this point that thing is not. I feel like it's I feel like he might be bleeding through that nose again. I just that image of him, it's so ingrained in my memory. I was there for that UFC 189 when Robbie Lawler caved in the center of his face. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like Jesus, I don't. And then he broke it again when he fought his last fight in the UFC. I forgot who that was when he kept trying to do the 50-50 guard roll.
Was that Wonder Boy?
I think it was Wonder Boy, and it broke again. And it's like, now, obviously he's been doing well, but Mousasi's a heavy hitter, and he's got a pretty good submission game too. So Mousasi's just looks like he's got when you look at Mousasi, it's like you can feel elbows and knees hitting you. You know what I mean? And I just feel like that's a high. He's going to take a lot of damage, and it might be on that nose again.
Yeah, I think Musashi's going to finish him. I think he's going to. I said it on a previous show that's why I think the welterweight tournament becomes a lot more interesting, because I think John Fitch against Rory McDonald after what Mousasi does to him, I think that fight becomes a lot more competitive. If
that's a good point.
The war, he could potentially take quite. I don't know if he's going to take a beating, but he could. Musashi could put it on him, and in 3 months we might be seeing him trying to jump back into the welterweight tournament, and all of a sudden, he's another step down just from the wars he's been in.
Who's the alternate for that?
It's Lorenz Larkin and newly signed Eric Silva.
Okay.
So that's going to be a fireworks. That fight's going to be a great fight. I don't think either one of those guys will be a threat in the tournament in general. Unless Larkin comes in maybe towards the final and gets a real favorable matchup. But it's from top to bottom. That's just an exciting tournament, and probably one of the top 5 tournaments in the history. Well, it's hard to say in the history of our sport, but it's definitely one of the top tournaments we've ever seen, especially at 170 pounds.
Ed brings up a good point, man. If Rory's nose gets banged up in this thing, and Larkin goes in there against Fitch, to me, that's a pretty easy win for Fitch.
I would take Fitch in that fight.
Yeah, I mean, you can't count Fitch out. He's definitely an imposing figure. People give him a lot of crap because of the fights go to decision or whatever. But I mean, there's still wins.
I think he would have his way with Larkin in the grappling department. I really do. I mean,
Yeah,
I see him.
I agree. I think he totally manhandles Silva if Silva were to somehow get past Larkin. I don't think Silva would stand a chance against John Fitch or just about anybody in that Grand Prix, honestly. But we mentioned Fight TV. I know we're starting to come to the end here, but this weekend is also Ryzen 13, one of the biggest
Ryzen. I don't know how to say it.
I used to call it Ryzen, but I believe it's Ryzen.
Primus.
Yeah, Primus. Don't ask me to say Chizia or Kisea or but Japan coming off the terrible news of Kid Yamamoto's passing. I meant to mention that last week. One of the true pioneers and legends and superstars that our sport has seen passed away at 41 due to cancer last week. So I'm curious to see how Ryzen moves on and he never fought for them, but I'm curious to see what kind of show and maybe what kind of videos and stuff we get to as a tribute to him.
Yeah.
I know he was a big fan of Horiguchi, Kyoji Horiguchi, who was fighting in the main event in a kickboxing bout against the young freak. I mean, just absolute superstar Tenshin Nasukawa. Who's an undefeated kickboxer, is undefeated in MMA and Risen. And it's kind of our typical what Pride used to do this, or K1 used to do this, where we'd get Don Fry versus Jerome LeBanner and stuff like that. But I think this is a little bit more evenly matched. I think Tenshin will probably win the fight just because he's the natural kickboxer and somebody who seems like he's on another level than everybody he's ever fought. But God, it would be great to see Horiguchi win and hold up a picture of Yamamoto and just kind of carry on that tradition for the great Japanese martial artists that we haven't really had since Sakuraba. Horiguchi's kind of carrying that torch right now, and he's done a hell of a job. But this fight right here could make or break Ryzen, and it could be a great fight.
I mean, it'll be great either way. I mean, I think even if because it's outside of Horiguchi's wheelhouse or whatever. I mean, we don't know how these guys train, but either way, even if he loses, it's a kickboxing match. It does nothing to his MMA legacy. So,
yeah. Did you see what happened to Don Fry when he fought Jerome LeBanner?
Well, yeah. What I'm saying now, I mean, I don't see it. I don't see it. Like, actually, when I got the press release, I was just like, really, kickboxing? Why are you doing this? But then I was like, okay, it's still interesting just to see. I mean, it's the same as Conor McGregor going to box Floyd Mayweather. It's like, of course, you're stepping out of your comfort zone, but is there something cool about somebody trying to challenge themselves? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Wild, have you been able to keep up with Ryzen for the most part and those guys' careers?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, I know obviously Tenshin and Horiguchi and I'm excited for that fight. I saw that I read something online where Kid Yamamoto apparently he died of stomach cancer, man.
Yeah.
And he had been diagnosed 2 years ago and he died at age 41. That's just crazy. And taken way too young. So yeah, it'd be really cool to see Horiguchi pull it off, but I think Tenshin's probably too much for him. And but yeah, for me, I'll be real honest with you. Typically, I probably don't know 80% of the fighters that fight on a Ryzen card from card to card, but I watch anyway because Ryzen is an event to me. I love the pageantry, the production of it.
Hard not to.
Lene and the whole nine. It just brings back memories of Pride for me, and that's why I really watch those events.
Well, this event, I mean, I'm not going to go through every fight, but you know, you got Darren Cruikshank versus Diego Brandao, which should be
Okay.
a spectacular fight.
Yeah.
Yuri Prokryak, who was the fought, I believe he fought Krokop in the finals of their first tournament. He's fighting Jake Hune, who's been around. Yamamoto's sister is actually fighting Andy Wynn in a rematch. You know, Bob Sapp's fighting, which is nothing more than name, but the name that's going to draw most MMA fans that in an actual MMA match is we get the return of Mirko Krokop this weekend
Yeah.
against
Okay.
Roque Martinez. So, you know, we talk about Vanderlei. I mean, you know, in a matter of 24 hours, we're going to see Mirko Krokop, Vanderlei Silva, uh, and uh, and Rampage Jackson all fight, and then in 2 weeks after that, we're gonna get Fedor. I mean, it's they can say it's throwback, but these guys are front and center even today. So, I mean, I personally I'm paying to watch Krokop fight, whether he's fighting you know, a garbage can or he's fighting Fedor. Yeah. So, um, and then so that kind of rounds out the weekends. I know there's an EBI, there's a Cage Warriors, pretty loaded weekend of action. Before you leave, Wild, we might as well ruffle some feathers on the MMAcommunity.com. How do you see Khabib versus Conor McGregor going down?
You know, just because that bitch ass Conor McGregor nut hugger, I'm leaning towards Khabib. And no, I mean, you know, everybody's, you know, that's analyzed the fight has got it right. You know, I mean, if Conor can hang in there for a round and a half, and clip him with that left hand, it's over. But if Khabib gets him down one time in the first round,
he's gonna get dragged all the way back to Dragistan.
well, I mean, you saw Barboza, man. It was just like, you know, I mean, he just sucked the energy out of Barboza, and in that first round, and you know, I think he would do the same to Conor. So it's really, you know, can Khabib close the distance and get in there without getting clipped with that left hand? If he does, to me, he grinds him out. But I don't know, man. His stand-up is just so, you know, I don't know, rudimentary in some aspects that, you know, McGregor could definitely finish that fight.
Yeah, I mean, I just look back through the history of MMA, and when you have, you know, a world class wrestler and a world class striker, it's hard for me not to go with the world class wrestler. They tend to, you know, all he's got to do is grab him. This, you know, Conor has to land a punch, and not only does he have to land a punch, but he has to land a knockout punch. And I mean, I don't see any way Conor gets up off the ground if it goes down there. You know, I might even go out on a limb and say I think Khabib finishes his fight in the first round. I think I could see him landing a Kimura or a rear naked choke, just based off of his grappling and wrestling skills. Conor hasn't fought in the cage, and it'll be 2 years. You know, it'll be a month less than 2 years. I just, you know, and I was explaining it to somebody over the weekend. You know, this is Khabib's fight. You know, he becomes the Conor McGregor of, you know, Eastern European, you know, Eastern Europe. If he wins this fight, he becomes a multi-millionaire. If he wins this fight, you know, you know, I don't know how his religion is with it and stuff, but he becomes kind of the hero of a bunch of different aspects of his life. Kind of like when Conor was coming up when he fought Mendez. I mean, that was kind of the turning point for Conor, where it was put up or shut up. You know, you win that fight, all of a sudden you're a legend throughout Europe and Ireland and the world. And I don't think Khabib will reach Conor levels because I don't think he has the, you know, the fan base don't have the ability to be as vocal as the Irish fans. But you know, you know, I just don't see him making the mistake of standing. I think he takes this fight immediately to the ground, and I think he mauls Conor into an early submission.
Who you got, Ed?
You know what? I'm gonna reserve my analysis because I have to do a full main card breakdown with MMAnews.com.
Okay.
And I think we're gonna have the guy that does the roundtables on as a guest next week. He's sort of confirmed when I spoke to him today, but so I'll probably get into it with him for next week since that's the week of the event. But I mean, because the other reason I'm reserving my judgment is because or my prediction is because there's to me there's still some unknowns just because of Connor's absence makes me lean towards Khabib, but Khabib's erect stance makes me lean towards Connor. You know what I mean? So there's things that I got to do a little more homework before I make a true pick.
You're gonna pick Khabib. You're gonna pick Khabib.
Well, I mean that's where I'm leaning more towards because Khabib is just he's active and but like I picked Alvarez when Alvarez fought McGregor I had Diaz submitting him for the second time, but that straight left, that's the thing, that straight left may not be the straight left we saw. I know you would think boxing would make it more dangerous, but I feel like when you stray away from we talked about this just before with the Ryzen kickboxing match, you know what I mean? Like they're stepping outside of what you're used to. Does that improve your skill set or damage it when you return to that thing? So that's where I'm at. That's why I'm kind of like I got to do a little more homework.
Matt, you mentioned you wouldn't be surprised if Khabib finishes in the first round. Let me pose this to you. What if Khabib is able to close the distance early and get that takedown, and it's so easy for him to get it? Do you think he drags this fight out and puts a beating on him over 2 to 3 rounds? Do you think he risks that, or do you think he finishes as soon as he can?
I don't. Okay, now we other than the Mendez. Okay, we saw Mendez take down Connor. We saw Duffy on top of Connor in Cage Warriors. His losses have been submissions, and the Diaz fight, it wasn't like it was a lot of ground fighting. When he went down, to me, he looked like a fish out of water compared to the guys he was up against. So I don't know if it's.
I guess what I'm asking is, do you think we could see another Michael Johnson fight if he gets that takedown easy early?
Perhaps, but I don't. I think Michael Johnson's better at defending submissions, at least from what I've seen, than Connor.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen Connor defend a submission.
Yeah.
Anybody who's really slapped a submission on him or attempted to. I mean, I just don't see Connor rolling out of an armbar. I don't see Connor.
The only solid submission escapes he did was against Chad Mendes when he did the alpha male takedown to mounted guillotine, and he spun out of that twice. But that's the closest you get to it. Just because I wanted to chime in, I made the note so I don't forget it. The scenario that Wild just put out there, Khabib called it during the press conference. Connor gives up when he taps. So
yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying as far as maybe if he wants to lay a beating on him, but that's where I could see Khabib losing. If he goes in with that mentality and they have to stand up every round, he opens himself up to that shot. And obviously, Connor being a southpaw is dangerous to anybody. Even more than somebody just throwing, even like the H bomb or something. I mean, any of that stuff lands, you're going down. And I just. I don't think he wants to mess around. I think he's going to take him down, mug him up, take his back, and choke him out. And he's taken everybody down, but you got guys like Barboza and Iakenta and Michael Johnson who just, in my opinion, just have much better wrestling and submission defense. Maybe not Barboza's wrestling, but Khabib didn't really go for a lot of submissions in that match, if I recall. But I think Khabib just wants to get it done and embarrass him as quick as possible and walk out and I don't want to say spit on the guy, but basically spit on the guy and walk away. And that's how I see it happening.
That's not going to go over well on the forum, Matt. I'm just going to
I'm a Fedor fan. I've heard it all, so I don't need to the same people picking Connor are the same people that picked Frank Mir, and we know how that ended up with Frank Mir. So
Hey, I got your back, homie. Don't worry.
No, I don't mean to bash McGregor. I love watching the guy fight. I haven't picked him to win a lot of fights. I'll admit, I thought Aldo would beat him, and I thought Eddie Alvarez would beat him. The Aldo fight was a fight where it was one punch, and it's hard to judge, in my opinion, on that again. If they had a rematch, I certainly don't think it would be a one-punch fight. And I thought Alvarez fought one of the again, I'm a huge Eddie fan, but I thought he came out with one of the worst game plans I've ever seen a fighter come out with in a big fight. And he allowed himself to get blasted early. Didn't use any of the actual skills that he's used to beat some other big name fighters in his fights. So, and as it turns out, I've said it several times, McGregor's a great fighter. When I've seen Khabib fight live, I was at the Barboza fight. I was at the Michael Johnson fight. Kind of like Aaron Pico, when you've seen as many fights as I have and you've seen them up close, there's certain guys that just stand out to you. And those guys just seem like they're on another level than other guys I've seen. I've seen McGregor bleed. I've seen, I saw Mendez take him down and beat him up for 2 rounds before he eventually lost. But to see a guy go out there and not even have a punch landed on him. I mean, people talk about the Michael Johnson punch. I can show you instant replays where it's like, if that's all you got in 26 fights, then, I mean, I've been hit with more punches than Khabib has, and I've only been in a few fights in my life, and I've won them all. But, it's just, I don't know. I think that argument with, he just seems like he's such another level. Now, if he stands there and dances around and tries to do the chicken dance in front of Connor and plays a game, then he's asking for his own demise. But I've learned that I'll go with the wrestlers. I'm not always a big fan of their style because it can be boring at sometimes. But I just don't. I don't know. Unless Connor comes out and throws some wild head kick that catches everybody off guard or something like that, or a spinning back fist, or I don't know. To me, Khabib rushes him, gets him up against the cage, does his little trip takedown, and takes his back, and to me, it's all over from that point.
Well, if McGregor somehow wins, we'll just pink everybody, all his fanboys, for a week and be done with it.
Yeah, if McGregor wins and his fans, they should get to celebrate, and I'll take it on the chin like I did.
No. We just pink them, man, and Splendid can eat it.
Yeah, there you go. We'll just have like 3 members. It'll be me, you, and Sparkury, and that'll be the. I gotta want to watch what I say. I don't want to bash any members on the site, but there's a few members who probably are talking to themselves 90% of the time on there. But with that said, I want to thank you for coming on again. Again, you guys, the website, you and Splinty, again, your guys' screen names on the site have been, really helpful for me as far as giving me an outlet for this and helping me gain a little bit of confidence as far as being, able to come out here and do a show and know that people are willing to listen to it and enjoy it. And, from day one, whether it was through that HBO contest or anything, you guys have just been right there for me. And I want to thank you for coming on and talking. It's kind of a long overdue. We should have had you on earlier in the history of our show here, but again, thank you. And, you want to throw out your plugs and everything. I know everything is basically the MMA community, whether it's at the MMA community or, but you want to throw out all your handles for all the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for y'all having me on. I do appreciate it. And it is good to see you guys, getting this podcast going and being successful at it. I'm proud of you guys. In terms of the website, it's obviously the MMAcommunity.com. Anybody that's looking for MMA discussion and state of the art technology and owners that are responsive and interact on the forums, I would encourage everybody to come check us out. It takes about 60 seconds to sign up.
Yep.
No paid subscriptions, no ads, no bullshit. Just come check us out on Twitter. It's at the MMA Community, and the same on Facebook. And we actually just signed up on created an account on Gab.com, which is a alternative to Twitter. So we're at TMMAC there. So
What is that? Gab, G-A-B?
Yeah, gab.com. It's
Okay.
it's an alternative to Twitter. So I thought I would
I don't know about that.
check it out. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Come check us out.
I just want real quick about the MMA Community.com. I'm not a frequenter of forums, but the only one I do go to is the MMA Community.com one because of how cool everybody is there, including Conor McGregor Nut Hugger. So
fuck that guy.
But yeah, so yeah, good talk. And as usual, our fans can follow us at Combat Hour on Twitter, myself at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, at Carbeerzol on Instagram. And that's kind of where we're at. Teesprings.com. The Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour with dashes in between each word. We still have our shirts available. You can see that link on the at Combat Hour Twitter.
Also in the description here.
Timeline in the description here. If somebody were to order a shirt, show some proof, I might be willing to add a little special gift from my little MMA memorabilia collection here. Always happy to, and we'd always be happy to, talk to anybody who wants to support the show.
Also, you get a shout out here on the show.
There you go. So, again, thanks for coming on, Wild. Hopefully we get a 2:30 main event announcement here pretty soon. And until then, everybody enjoy the Bellator on Saturday. And then Ryzen followed that up a late night on DAZN and Fight Network respectively. So everybody have a good week, and we'll see you guys later.
All right, fellas. Thanks again. Keep up the good work.
Peace.
Thank you.